Thank you.
Hello, everybody. And we are live. Wow. Finally. Alexa, stop. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Analysis with Ro Tea Talk Edition. Today, we are going to basically be going through specific topics that I did not get to last time, and that was mostly due to the fact that, well, put it simply, I was dealing with all kinds of issues with technology. So now that we have all of that settled, we can actually get into the main topic of the hour with our fellow helper here, Pom Pom. Let us get through everything that needs to be done first and foremost. My name is Ro. You're watching Analysis with Ro, where we talk about any analysis that I basically want to do. We are currently still on Hunter x Hunter, specifically with the character Hisoka, and I have completed another episode on Spotify. It's my audio podcast. That's also about to be visual. We are moving to video podcasts pretty soon. And what we basically are going to be doing is just breaking down his character piece by piece, starting off with his childhood all the way up to adulthood. Some other relevant news or other things involving sponsorships is that I also have a Patreon and a Ko-fi if you want to support this show monetarily. This show wouldn't be what it is without lovely viewers such as yourself. So, give it up for yourself for being a part of this lovely production as well. We would not do it without you guys. And yes, the studio will be set up and ready, so we'll basically have a video version of the podcast show pretty soon. That might appear sometime next month in March, so please stay tuned for that kind of stuff, as well as certain other things that the show will introduce, such as right now, pretty much we're set in my bedroom, but again, moving to the studio pretty soon, along with our Patreon, Ko-fi, and us having a YouTube channel as well, so you can catch up on the latest live streams, such as this one, as well as certain other things on the YouTube channel, as well as Twitch, which is what you're probably watching right now. So you can catch, if you missed this live stream, it's going to be on my YouTube. So you could just keep up with what is going on with pretty much everything. Okay. My name is Analysis with Ro on most streaming platforms. And if you were to look up on Patreon what you need to find, it is also Analysis with Ro, which is also going to be in the chat. So let me put that up there real quick for you guys. All streaming platforms. Already. And that's pretty much the whole entire shindig of it all. Now let's get started on today's show. So, what I'm essentially showing is pretty simple, pretty basic stuff. And we're going to get through certain videos to really hone in on the point of what I'm trying to get through today. So just stick around and stay with me, everybody. All right, so this pretty much, what I'm about to show you right now is the last episode that we dealt with. So this childhood, and the topic of today is the effect of homelessness. See right there? Effects of homelessness that we had for his character mainly. So basically what we are dealing with is a case of a man who's been traumatized by all kinds of things. And the first and foremost thing is like the effects of homelessness. And you're probably wondering, where did you get that from? Well, I got that specifically from the pre-canon manga that he had that was shown with Shueida and Togashi basically creating the concept of his pre-canon together. And in the first page, right, it basically showed this little boy, which is young Hisoka, of him being essentially on the streets, all beaten up and whatnot, and he was just, all beaten up in the streets, and he was just there, hungry, cold, all the things that you could think of, like the worst elements of homelessness. That's what this kid essentially had to deal with. That is how we get introduced to Hisoka's character as a whole. That's exactly how we get introduced to his character. It's like, oh my goodness, that's what happened. Him essentially being that way on the streets and barren. I can't show you the actual page itself because, as far as I'm aware, I'm not sure if that's something that I could do on this here platform without getting copyright banned. But I'll try to show it on my Patreon once we get like Patreon Live going. So hopefully you could see it on there. But I do want you to recognize that the very first page is the first indication of evidence that I got for essentially this whole entire analysis. And you're probably wondering, well, what did this analysis entail? It entailed specifically the effects of homelessness. We know, especially nowadays, right, in current times with the current politics that are going on within the world right now, let's just say homelessness is worse than ever, right? But the number one question that I don't think enough people are asking, but probably should be, well, how is this affecting the youth, the younger kiddos, right, that has dealt with or had to deal with currently this kind of situation? Well, to put it simply, it's a type of trauma. It is a adverse childhood experience, I think otherwise known as ACEs. So one of the childhood experiences that could bring pain and other things is considered an ACE. This could mean anything from like abuse or this, that, and the fourth, right? And this current ACEs that this character has dealt with, which for a lot of Hunter x Hunter characters would be like, wow, I did not expect this man to deal with a whole lot of trauma. But you know what Tyler, the creator, said. It's like the one that smiles in the room is often the saddest one there. He's not the only one that said it. It's a popular phrase, but he said it in one of his songs, you know? So, anyways, you know, it's that whole entire thing. And dealing essentially with just the absolute trauma of it all, and basically dealing with having little to no resources as a child. And also on top of that, in the last episode, we kind of talked about like how grief impacted his character as well. So now what we're basically going to be doing is we are basically going to go through some of the things that I've used for evidence, and hopefully you get to truly understand the effects of childhood homelessness, or certain things that I did not talk about within that podcast episode. So I'm about to show you a couple of clips that I used for this specific episode and the specific thing that I did for his research, because again, for most of my research for, you know, these characters, it's a whole lot of stuff like combined. Like I go in like all these books beside me. It's like I'm using all the resources I have, you know. So hold on, let me pull up and share the clip real quick so y'all can really hone down and understand everything. So I'm about to pull it up. In the meantime, enjoy this music while I pull up the next video. Alexa, play some pop music for me. Alexa, increase the volume. Enjoy these bops, and I'll be right back with the next video.
What they have until it's gone. We lost our whole house and everything.
Growing up poor.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of people in America that need children with food.
Through the eyes of children.
Sometimes when I watch people like walk into their house when we're driving, I wish that sometimes like I had a house like those people.
We first met them 5 years ago.
If I could change anything, it would be being poor.
I'm Kaylee, and I'm 15.
Now we catch up with them as teenagers and see the America they're growing up in today.
I want to say before we continue, the reason why we're going to watch essentially a clip of this documentary is pretty much showing you the effects of poverty on children, which adds on to our discussion of the effects of homelessness on children and how this could impact Hisoka's character during his childhood. Just to give preference as to why we're watching a clip. We're not going to watch the whole thing because it's an entire hour long, but you're just going to watch a clip of this and then a clip of something else amongst other videos today that really hone in today's discussion.
My name is Brittany Smith and I'm 9 years old. It's tough because my mom and dad are poor. My dad just lost his job. One day I tried getting in the shower and it was cold. I put the hot on all the way and no cold, and it was freezing. It felt like shoving your face in a bunch of snow. It was freezing. The hot water shut off because we didn't pay the bill in time. It was overdue.
So what's the next bill due?
Electricity will be $318. We just need to put Roger's ass to work.
Yeah.
When you see the flat screen TV and the computers and our PS3 and stuff, that's just things we've acquired over the years. Stuff that we've had before all this happened. Like when we were not this poor.
It's broke. I don't know how or why, but it broke. And the cheapest plumber is like $65 an hour. I can't even afford $20.
We live.
But see, something probably similar to this was more so like his childhood before he lost his mother. Maybe not like completely like this, mind you. We talked about how there might be cultural differences with his childhood, analyzed and predicted, essentially inferenced, whatever word you want to use, that his childhood's like culture, like what he grew up around was more so like Mexican Romani, to be specific. There's a pretty good reason why I chose like Mexican / like Hispanic Romani in general, but I chose Mexican because why not? You could use whatever Hispanic group though, and like Romani as well. As far as what I assumed his dad to be, I think I predicted his dad to be more so like French and Korean, I'm pretty sure. It's like, don't get me wrong. It's like there's definitely a mixture of different things that I think he is, because he appears to be very much on the mixed end. A lot of Hunter x Hunter characters appear to be in that way. Like they're more than one thing, which is, I mean, great, you know, lovely stuff. But that is what I predicted his background to be. And I talked about it more expansively on my Twitter before it got deleted by dear old Elon. Fuck him, for real. I hate what Elon did to my whole Twitter thing. Like, there are way more analyzations on there before it got deleted. And I used to have like voice tweets, essentially, all gone because Elon is a little bitch. It's probably for the best, though. I heard Twitter is like a hell space nowadays, so, you know, it's whatever. But I'm on Blue Sky now. Also, I should have highlighted that as well, you know. I might as well highlight most of my social medias. And I think if you check out the links within like my Twitch, like For You page or my Twitch description, it has all the links in there. It's got my TikTok, Discord, Spotify, Linktree, and Hoobie. And I'm pretty sure both on Linktree and Hoobie, you can find my Blue Sky on there. So it's not like it's the end of the world. I just wish Blue Sky could add voice tweets, because that was my favorite thing about Twitter, that I didn't have to type my thoughts out. I could just speak them. Miss doing that, but here we are, you know. That's what Twitch is for nowadays, until I can get that whole thing situated. Let's keep going.
Lived in a farmhouse. My dad lost his job from Picture Perfect. He got laid off and we got kicked out of there. We moved here. It's not very big. We didn't have enough room, so we had to put stuff in storage, and we lost it all because we couldn't pay it.
How storage works is like you put all your stuff in there when you move, but you have to pay the bill or else it gets thrown out in the street because I have a spare key. I don't think it's right because people shouldn't throw other people's stuff in the street because that's just plain up rude. I got a big makeup thing and I lost it in storage. I got a Bratz doll. I lost it in storage. I lost my favorite teddy bear. I lost my DS. It was great. It was awesome. I'm bummed out because that was my favorite thing in the world besides my family.
Yeah, caliper shot. Gotta get new pistons at least on it.
My dad's brakes on the truck isn't working. One time we almost got...
Hold on, guys, hold on. And another thing that essentially we talked about on the show itself, like the episode that discusses this, we talked about how like children who come from these kind of like backgrounds essentially have like a closer bond to whatever item that they have, right? So basically what items that they do keep, whether it be like toys or, you know, even something as simple as like a marker that I'm holding right now, like that is precious essentially to that kid because all of the items that they might have had before, it's lost now, right? So like anything like plates, like things that we don't really consider day to day, like things that we take for granted. These are the things that a lot of kids who come from these more so poorer backgrounds or children who are affected by homelessness, which by the way, for the technical definition of homelessness, it's pretty much somebody that doesn't have like what would be considered a traditional shelter. So like right now, I live in a traditional shelter. I live in an apartment. Kids who are homeless are kids that I don't really count like trailer parks and mobile homes as like homelessness, but according to like the technical definition, that does count. You could debate on whether or not that officially counts. I'm not really gonna 100% count that today, but that does go into the conversation about poverty, right? So like people who are more so low income, they do tend to live in those kinds of environments. We will put that in the gray areas of what would be considered like homelessness, but that was on the list of like official things that did count. Children who live within tents, children who live within shelters, children who go from hotel to hotel, and again, they don't really have an official home, or children who basically find like hotel spaces to sleep in. Children who find like abandoned houses to sleep in, which probably, again, especially after like his mom's death, would probably put him in that category a bit more, like counting his character, especially during his childhood, it's like finding these different spaces to sleep in. And again, him being chased out by these adults, being chased out by, I assume, who beat him up. It might have been like a criminal group because encountering or being a victim to crime, it's very susceptible to like impoverished slash homeless children, especially if they're unaccompanied, meaning they have no adults or guardians around them, and he didn't by the time his mother like passed away. So that, along with like hotels, what also counts as like being a homeless kid is obviously like being on the streets themselves, which is what you stereotypically think of when you think of homelessness. All right, now that we got that cleared and out of the way as far as like definitions go, let us continue.
Rick. It sounded like nails on a chalkboard. I hate this. When is the cable being shut off?
Soon. Well, I'm almost $200. The cable, the internet, all that. We don't have the money to pay it.
How you doing?
And again, these children, and this applies to both when he was living with his mother as well as without. When he was living with his mother, he probably heard all these adult conversations about like money and how they don't have enough money, so they have to do all these like sacrifices that, you know, a lot of children probably would not be thinking of or probably should not even consider, right? There were plenty of children who went into like these different like working industries in order to provide for their families because they just did not have enough money, and finding odd jobs to support the family in any which way they can, which again, I don't think any child would be typically thinking of or need to think of if they did have, you know, all the resources required. But as well as just that, it's not only that, but, you know, him being homeless, it's now him needing to support himself, right? And obviously being a kid, it's a little bit hard to basically support yourself. So you find the scraps that you need, and later on he gets discovered by like his manager Maritino, which You could debate on whether that's a good or bad thing. I think, me personally, it's a mix of both. I think it was good for the fact that, you know, he didn't have to basically scavenge on the streets anymore and basically be near a point of death, because that's where he was like headed. It was gonna get like bad because he's an unaccompanied kid, which means that there's not as much, if any, protection for those kinds of children. And I think there's another documentary that also explains that, which we'll get into in a minute. But he was out there and he got found by his manager, and his manager basically like put him on and all this different stuff, and his manager was the one to like give him shelter. And in the next podcast episode, which will be video form, we're going to talk about more so the negative aspects of what's to come after from that. But at the very least, he had like his basic needs met as soon as he met like his manager. So that's the good aspect, but the bad aspect is everything that's going to come after, which I will not spoil. I shall not spoil myself, so you guys are just going to have to figure it out. All right, I think we can stop here for now because we are about to move on to the next documentary. But yeah, I really just wanted to show you guys a piece of the evidence that I essentially have used during this whole entire like analyzation. Like, this was a very, very, very long process, like this whole entire thing. Okay, so now that you got like the basics of what I was essentially doing, I want us to really hone down the whole thing when it comes to homelessness. The first thing especially is kind of like the stereotypes of it. Now, people think it's like, oh my God, they were homeless inside in the fourth because it's their personal fault, which, first of all, even if you think that way about like homeless adults, it's like normally it's not what happened. Like, we'll get into in a minute, like what entails or what makes somebody homeless. Like, it is the economic issues that are like systematic. Like, the majority of the issues that create homelessness are systematic. Like, let's sit and really think about this, guys. Like, the system that we have right now, which is neoliberal capitalism, as so many others, myself included, will say, is built off of exploitation, like the exploitation of others. This system cannot exist without exploiting something. Who do you think is being exploited? Because I guarantee you, it's not the wealthy bitches at the top. That's right. It's being taken from the bottom. It's not trickle-down economics. I would argue that it's the opposite. Trickle up. You know, Reagan was a bitch. I blame fucking Reagan. He was a bitch for creating it. And to lie like it's trickle down, it's gonna eventually go down to the poor people. No, it's trickle up. Or I should say, I'm gonna name it this, because that should be its official name. It's suckle up. Suck up economics. It's taking everything from down here. If I were to use this topic, effective homelessness, I'm not taking this up. Right? It's suck up economics. I don't know if this thing has an online board, but I'm gonna use the board that I have here because that's what it's for. Right? Suck up economics. You basically have this whole entire, I'm gonna draw it like it's a triangle, right? You got the middle class is dwindling, so this is shrinking. We're gonna put S short for shrinking. We're gonna put like the wealthy, we won't put money signs up here. I wish I had my green marker up here right now, but for now, we're gonna keep it black till I can get my green marker. But for right now, this is like the wealthy, like wealth for short, right? And here you have middle class, so, or working class. We're just gonna put M/W for middle/working. And again, it's shrinking. And then you have basically people who are either at poverty or below the poverty line. So you're going to put P for short. Now, how essentially Reagan explained it is that whatever the wealthy get, it's going to trickle all the way down so that the poor can basically get the remainder, right? But that's not the fucking truth of the matter. And I didn't talk enough about like the politics behind what Hisoka is experienced, because I think during the time that he was a kid, I mean, this is post Reagan, but Reagan fucked up economics it's a whole thing. It's like, I really blame Reagan for a lot of the modern day issues we have. It's not just Reagan's fault, but like he was the start of all this mess. But this is post Reagan, right? So I think if I were to do everything correct on this here thing I'm reading, this is the timeline for him, right? And it's gonna continue. I'm not done with the timeline because this is 2008 and I did not continue to his adulthood. We're gonna create another timeline part 2. So this is timeline part 1. And when he ended up homeless, it was around 2001. Wow. 9/11. Am I right? Like 2001, which was a crazy time in and of itself. Like, yeah, 9/11 existed, during that time and all that other stuff. So this was around the early 2000s, and I think if I was to be correct, essentially how the economy worked in the 2000s, this was before the 2008 recession. So this happened before the recession, but don't get me wrong, poverty was still very blatantly a thing, during the time, like a year before my birth, because me personally, I was born October 17th, 2002. All right, just a little additional fact for y'all. Point is, by the time he was homeless, it was around 2001 and early 2022. So he was homeless for, I can predict, about like a year and a half, which some might argue is like, oh, that's not a long time. But he's been poor the majority of his childhood. He got affected by homelessness for a year and a half. And then he got found by his manager around like maybe mid to late 2022. So before being found by his manager, he got affected by homelessness around the early 2000s. And the economy in the 2000s, I mean, it was not that bad. But again, because everything was affected by like how Reagan went about things back in like, I would say the 80s. Right? Mind you, I was not born when Reagan was around. That old fuck ruined economics as a whole. Jesus, I could complain about like the modern effects of like post Reagan all day. But the point that I'm trying to get at is with the effects of things like trickle down or suck up economics, as I'm gonna nickname it, we ended up pretty much with high rates of like homelessness. Now, if I were to go back into what I've written within my notebook, I think homelessness was around like 50% back then. It was high. It's still high today, but I think especially back in the 80s and early 2000s, if I were to look this up real quick, because I wrote it down. Of course I did. Because I'm telling you, man, it's a whole thing. You growing up poor tax, being a homeless child. Yeah, it's 9.8%. I said like 50. So from 1998 to 2006, again, he was homeless in 2001, nearly 1 out of 10 children, which is 9.8%, experienced at least one episode of homelessness, and nearly 1/4, 23.6%, experienced at least one episode doubling up. And I think since the 90s / early 2000s, I would argue that number has increased. Yeah, I think that number might have gotten worse over time. I don't know what it is nowadays. I did not look into modern, but I think it might have gotten worse. And I think with the new presidency era that we're in, that shit's gonna skyrocket. It's just gonna get worse from here. Oh boy. Can you believe like is it higher, presidency and all that? it's a whole thing. But anyways, we're gonna get into the next video. So just hold on again, and we're gonna be coming back with more, pretty much. Alexa, play some pop music again.
We can get closer. Feel my lips are feeling one out. Every time you breathe this air, just know how I can't really feel like I got yeah. Picture perfect ever. And this is true. You're probably me when it's careful. Take your breath. Something different. Something working. Is not sure what's all I can do. Is not just to you. My soul. Small. Too long. If I feel it's
Getting the whole thing situated. I'm back. You know what this computer likes to play? Games. All the time. I don't like seeing me succeed. On Black History Month? Every day, all day. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. So, we were on the topic before I was, trying to put everything back in the program. We were on the discussion of homelessness and how it impacted his character, and we just watched the first documentary that I used as a form of evidence and to help me kind of research what the experience of homelessness was like. Now, essentially, for Hisoka and many other people within this background, I would say that, again, as I discussed in the beginning, it was a trauma in particular. You're probably asking, okay, it was a trauma. Please explain that a bit more, because it's girl, I'm not really sure about all that, please tell me more about that. And it's of course I will. I'm going to be happy to. It's all about that. So let's get into it. Homeless children are particularly vulnerable to adverse childhood experiences, and can be argued that being homeless is an ACE or ACEs. And ACEs is short for adverse childhood experiences. Now, considering the frequent create changes and uncertainty, this can create basically trust and routine issues. So a sense of distrust. And they are also susceptible to drug abuse, domestic abuse, and I'm putting this on YouTube, so sexual abuse. I can't believe I have to say. I'm just going to say it straight up. If YouTube bans me, oh well. Sexual abuse. I don't know why that should be banned, because I feel like people should just know the word in of itself. Don't care, right? Substance misuse as well. As far as like his characters goes, I don't know if like his character in particular there's like any clear evidence of substance misuse. That's probably where the fun part is. Alexa, stop. That's probably where the fun stuff lies, pretty much, where it was you could basically put like this, that, and the fourth. It's like more likely than not, if there is substance misuse problems, it'd probably be like alcoholism. But research shows that the increased risk of adolescent drug abuse amongst the homeless population, with 71% of homeless children report drug or alcohol abuse disorders. So to be honest, yeah, it probably would be alcohol if we were to say what kind of substance abuse was involved. People be drunk. What fun, right? All right. That's a vibe. That's not actually a vibe. Like, don't say it like that. That's not like the vibe, but you get the gist. Sleep. Children with temporary accommodation struggle significantly with sleep and can be due to either sharing a room with multiple people, amongst like other reasons. And again, this is probably true for children who come from like shelters or small spaces, which is most homeless people in general. These are all just the things that basically was discussed within the episode when it came to like Hisoka being homeless. Here's the thing, right? Here's the whole thing about this entire episode and why it was created, besides like the clear evidence of like page 1 within his pre-canon manga. This character in particular, there's just certain aspects to his whole entire behavior that I'm like, that had to have been caused by something other than you're just doing it for the fun. You know, so that, again, that's pretty much why I made this entire show happen, right? To dive deep into what really makes people tick. And I think especially with a lot of people, like homelessness and like being impoverished, sometimes I feel like it gets made fun of more than it needs to be, especially because it's like I don't really think it's a topic that's meant to be made fun of, you know. I think this is something that is more so on the ends of, now that's definitely traumatizing. I think that definitely counts as something that just needs to be talked about professionally. I don't think we talk about how poverty in and of itself is a trauma, but it definitely is, guys. I just feel like it's something that could definitely change someone's entire psychology. I don't think we talk about that enough. I don't think we talk about how, like, you know, when children realize that they're being like ostracized and they're being different from like their group, and it's based on the fact that it's something that they can't control, and the groups around them being like heavily classist towards them, it can change a person's like trust within others, which is what we said earlier, because of the fact that, you know, their peers and everybody around them just seems to be so ahead of them due to the fact that they have more resources. And I think that also goes into the topics of like equality versus equity as well, which is like, yes, everybody is an equal human being and deserves to be treated with like respect and love equally, unless they do something blatantly criminal, but that's another topic for another day. You really have to consider like what counts as 100% criminal. You have to get into the whole topic of morality. I do believe like if we're gonna keep it a buck, most saggy, sexual crimes, I think that's something everybody can say. It's like, yeah, that's just morally wrong. I don't think there's any justification for that, any at all. To say that there is would be insane. But, you know, anything else, it's more so up for debate, you know? And I think we really have to consider more so just a whole lot of other topics. But I think more importantly, what has to be on the point of discussion, especially for the character and what adds on to what is later his like more so antisocial behavior. I think it does ring into like how people often view and treat people who are lower class. Like they do treat people who are like more on so on the end of the lower classes like kind of below you, right? There's this like gross view about how people in the lower class are just supposed to be. Like if you were to give somebody like on the streets or somebody homeless like, you know, money and stuff, I mean that's great, that's wonderful, but some people, even with those quote unquote good deeds or those altruistic deeds, there's a sense of entitlement. And not to mention, I mean, let's just talk about it now, like the people who film themselves doing good deeds towards the homeless, I consider that like kind of gross in a lot of ways, because it's like you should be doing kind acts just because, not because you want to like show off to all your friends how good of a person you are. It's like come on, you know, it's like I feel like it ruins the whole entire point of why you're doing that, right? And you are blatantly exploiting somebody for views. I feel like that's the part that nobody wants to talk about, or better yet, that's pretty much just like this act that you're doing is gross, but I can't explain why. I'm going to explain why. It's because they are exploiting that poor person for views, and they're basically seeing that poor person as their commodity for their virtue. Keep it a buck with you. And I think when you've been around all those different kinds of people and people basically like playing in your face like 24 fucking 7, I wouldn't blame somebody ending up being like, yeah, I don't trust anyone. Like, screw all of you, you know? Like, I don't blame anybody for ending up having that kind of like mentality, like the older that they are. I kind of get it. Like, am I gonna lie and say like I don't get it? It's like, no, I absolutely get like eventually you being like shh, I don't really care that much for like humanity after that. It's like you kind of see, especially when you're in the most vulnerable moments in your life, like kind of the worst of people sometimes. Some people might say it's the worst of people, some people might say it's the truth. Like the things that people have been hiding from you finally gets revealed. And it's like, you know what, you are absolutely correct. It does get revealed. People do expose their true selves when you really down on your luck. Like, who is really there for you? It's a constant question that has to keep being asked. You know, you keep asking that same question, and whether or not there are people around you that you can trust in Pacific. And it's a little hard hard to tell, because are they here for me, or are they here for like what I can provide? And we will get into that conversation. I would add even more with this next podcast episode, especially when discussing like child performance and all this other stuff. And like, instead of being, you know, a commodity one way, which is basically being used as like a prop for somebody else's virtue, now you're essentially being used as a child performer, as, you know, a prop for somebody else's like prestige because of your talent, which is a whole nother other discussion that I hope that you guys are ready for. I genuinely hope you guys are ready for it. It's gonna be a whole thing. But I just wanted to talk about a couple of other things, which is more so like the physical effects as well as the emotional effects of homelessness. So back to the topic of discussion. So for the physical effects, you know, homeless children generally exhibit more health problems and than children who are not homeless, pretty much, or have like surrounding adults that could help. So because the reason why that I would say like homeless children have more health issues is because, again, there's a lack of health care. So there's a lack of that resource. It's harder to get to hospitals and have like full care because unfortunately for this character and many of y'all probably, we live in a US of A. We have to pay for healthcare. If you get hurt and you'll be like, oh my God, this is an emergency situation, a lot of you probably think it, but the ambulance is so expensive, so I can't call them. So I gotta like sit and wait like 10 plus minutes for a fucking Uber. It's gross out here in these streets, like this country. Like, not everything needs to be a business, for real. Like, you look at somebody, you'd be like, I would keep you alive, but you are not giving me the dollar bill, so I kind of have to kill you off. That's low-key evil. Like, when we really sit and think about it, it's kind of fucked up. But that's the system, which is why Luigi did what he did. And you know what? But I have nothing but respect. Like, at some point, you just gotta be like, you know what? Would I personally do that? No. But I respect people who were bold enough to do what I thought about doing before. It's like, will this potentially get me slapped with the big X? Maybe, but it's okay. Next thing, and due to various environmental risk as well, homeless children are at high risk for infectious diseases because, again, there's a lack of protection for them overall. So they basically get exposed to like everything, and I can only imagine. This was back in like the early 2000s. So if he was like a kid character now, right? And basically, I can only imagine what, and this is probably a sad thing that I'm bringing up, what COVID was like for homeless children during that time who had like little to no protection. Like they were especially a vulnerable population. I can only imagine what that would be like for them. Like, that kind of breaks my soul, you know, just imagining that. And not just imagining that, like actually probably researching the impact of how it affected that kind of person. So we have that, as well as illnesses such as severe asthma and lead poisoning. And again, this is due to basically being exposed to all kinds of, dangerous things. So being exposed to things like lead and probably mercury within the water, or just different types of food that you're probably taking scraps from the ground. You have no idea what kinds of things are like within the food or why they're there, probably being exposed to like different kinds of mold. Like it's horrendous. Like when I tell you that this character amongst like his childhood was in the trenches for real. Like when I say I grew up on the streets, I mean it. Like when people say grew up on the streets, I don't think they actually knows what like that fully entails. It's a whole thing. Like, it's something that's so risky, I would say. We also got like poor nutrition that contributes to homeless children's poor health, causing increased rates of like stunted growth and anemia. So as far as like stunted growth goes, again, some people, because of that, they kind of have like their growth stifled. Now for him, I don't think that necessarily happened 100%, but you can say like homeless, children that are unaccompanied and homeless because of the fact that there's nobody there to basically manage their food or anything. They pretty much are malnourished, and when you're malnourished, you shrink with everything. Like you are shorter than your average person. There's different types of fat that your body preserves to keep you warm. You probably don't have. Like when I tell you massive health effects, like it's big, it's major laser, And then you also have like anemia, which is pretty much more so of a blood issue. And the whole entire thing is like if you stand up, it's like you're gonna pass out and things like that. It's like, yeah, that's due to anemia. And due to lack of access to like healthcare, this can increase the severity of the illness because again, there's nobody to help you out because you don't have the money, which is sick. I hate how our country is set up. And for those of you that are wondering, it's like, okay, why are you using like the U.S. as an example? I explained it in the last podcast, but I'll explain it again. Plus, I'll have a whole entire like podcast on my Patreon specifically discussing like the history of Glam Glassland. It is their version of Las Vegas. This character is canonically, if you want to say that's like canonically, technically, officially American. Like if you were to translate to our world, it's like he's American. That's his nationality. So that's why, I use that comparison because it's like according to our world, he would be from the USA. And it'd be a whole thing. It'd be a whole thing. And also emotional and behavioral effects as well. So that's the next thing. So after we saw like the physical impacts, basically how it affects somebody's health, and I just want to say before we get to emotional behavioral effects as well, inadequate shelter, insecurity, lack of resources and services, and barriers to other services, because here's the thing that most people do not get or do not understand. It'd be like, oh my God, homelessness like just get a home, and it'd be like, you need documents to get a home. You need money to get a home. Like when you apply for work, they ask what's your address. What are you gonna put on the address? The streets? Like, people don't actually think when they say that. It's like, just get a home. As if you could just walk in and be like, I like a home, please. And they'll just give it to you for free. They're not gonna give you homes for free. I don't know what world you live in where it's like, yes, I would like all the homes that you have for free. What world do you live in? I want to live in that world. I want to live in La La Land where you could just go in and be like, I like a home, please. Of course, we could give you a home. We won't ask any further questions. You ain't got no credit score because you ain't got no credit card, because in order to have a credit card, you need money and documents. Where's your social security card? Where's your birth? Don't know would be the answer. It's like, if you don't know, you can't have documents, and therefore you can't have no job, you have no house. And on top of that, it's like, again, back to the discussion, homeless children, because of, and I mean, it's a good thing that we have child labor laws, but because of all that, the chances of you gaining any of those resources, except if you were to enter the entertainment industry, which he did do, but with the exception of that, most of the time, you gonna be scrapping till you're 18. And even when you're 18, it's like you're basically being abandoned by the system because you have no resources. So I hate the whole entire conversation of it being somebody's personal fault, because even if they wanted to better their lives, how can they when they don't have the resources? Again, the conversation of equality and equity. It's like, yes, we're all equal, but not all of us have the same amount of resources to be at an equal stance anyways. To really keep it a buck with you.
Of the discussion, because I cut everything off last time. And now we're just going to be talking about the final part. So last time that I was cut off, we're discussing the emotional aspects. And what I was going to show you was a clip from Boy Meets World. I don't know if I can share the screen on here. I think I can. But if not, that's fine. I don't necessarily have to. I just have to tell you what happened. So in the Boy Meets World episode, if you can look it up, it's pretty much that episode where he goes to ask this girl out, and this girl is a classist piece of shit, mind you. So she just turns him down in a completely disrespectful way. It's not disrespectful that she turned him down. I would never say that. I would never say, oh, it's so disrespectful, as if met her da-da-da-da. It's that's not why. What was disrespectful was the classist comments that came with it. It was I don't want to date you because you're a fucking baroque, essentially. And I'm just girl, you didn't gotta say all that. You could have just said I didn't like you like that and kept it a pushing like everybody else. That's it. She really had to, fucking say. She just kept going in, too extra. Whoa, girl, didn't have to be like that. I swear, someone took Serious 7 a bit too serious. It's he didn't even say anything disrespectful. No need to be like a bitch like that from the get-go. I'm not wearing, by the way, any makeup at all right now. This is all natural. You see me in my natural form. Because I wanted this to be a casual live. We'll get to the more sophisticated lives later, but I just wanted to finish off this conversation with discussions about unaccompanied youth, because first of all, I never defined what that is to you guys, so let me just finish this off with that definition real quick before I go. We're gonna finish this off with a banger. So Hisoka being an unaccompanied youth means that he is particularly vulnerable to victimization, as we've discussed earlier with this live, and faces a high risk to trafficking, especially within the Hunter world, because the thing about it is, the Mafia is one of the main distributors for trafficking within like the Hunter x Hunter universe. And it's not just like Meteor City. Like, yes, Meteor City was most the major cities to be affected due to the fact that, again, poverty brings that kind of vulnerability in, and you're less likely to be protected. But, you know, there's poor people all over the world. So, like, they came from like all different regions, and they were apparently in like the USS, specifically Glam Glass Land. I know for a fact they were probably in York New too, aka their version of New York. They have like pretty much all of our states, it's just named different, and all of the major cities, it's just named differently. In the Hunter universe, I guess because of copyright, like Steven Universe did the same thing. Like Beach City is Delaware. For those of you that did not know that, Beach City is Delaware. You're welcome. Like fun cartoon facts of the day. I give y'all realness. I give y'all the truth. But yeah, just being a victim to that, as well as physical and sexual abuse, amongst other forms of predation, and at a higher risk of additional traumatic incidents known as adverse childhood experiences. That's called ACEs. So that's pretty much the whole entire explanation I was trying to get at. But my computer likes being a trip. It likes being an absolute fucking fool sometimes. So that whole explanation did not work out the way that I originally wanted it to, but that's okay. You just saw my computer restart. See? Now it wants to get its act together. I digress. It was a whole entire thing. I will say that this whole entire like episode, like me researching like the childhood effects of homelessness and how it affected like Hisoka's character, it was a journey for sure, but I feel like the next episode I'm about to go into some deep stuff, because I feel like the next episode I'm about to watch like because I didn't watch the entire like documentary for like that Nickelodeon documentary that talked about like the abuse for like child actors within Hollywood, and them talking about like the Snyder, you know, the one, you know, the man. It's like talking about the Snyder. But yeah, it's just I'm about to go through all different kinds of research that it really makes me question like the industry that I'm kind of a part of. Like I love the arts, hate the industries, I would say. You know? But yeah, there's also just a lot. Just a lot going on. So you also got loss of personal objects and sense of self. You got anxiety that can come from the lack of comfort items, and children can be aggressively possessive of the items that they own. Again, and that's because of the fact that they don't own much, so whatever they have, they want to like basically keep and preserve. Like the homeless trauma of it all, it affects people deep. Like this is the type of stuff that really will impact your whole entire psychology. I'm talking keep it realness, to be completely honest with you. It's an entire thing of just being affected by the mess of it all. That's really all that it is. It's being affected by the mess of it all. This whole episode was really breaking down kind of like the like economic status of it all and how that affected his character. And I think ultimately it affecting it in that way. This is me pulling up my computer and everything, because now it wants to work again. I mean, thank God. You know, sometimes all it takes is a complete reset. Not like all the way back to factory reset, but just like reset in general. And you want to know what it is between like Hisoka compared to like other characters and how they dealt with like their past with poverty. Hence why I do kind of like this whole dynamic that he has with Krollo, because you could really see like kind of the difference of it all. You know, the difference between like him and Krollo a bit, and kind of, I don't know if it could be best explained as a dichotomy. I guess some people would do it that way. I guess I would in some sense between the two, because again, as we saw previously within the pages for Crollo, it's like him and his whole entire crew like basically dreamt of being actors, right? They dreamt of being within the industry. We're going to talk about everything a bit later. I don't want to spoil myself too much, but they dreamt of being within the industry versus like Hisoka, who basically kind of grew up within it already, right? And is more, I would say, is a bit more sardonic about it. If you were to talk about it fully to him, like doing like a complete interview and everything and all that, it's like I believe the way that he's gonna talk about it would be like completely different. Would be like, I'm in this bitch for real, and I've seen like the worst of everything within this industry. It's not all, sunshine and rainbows. It's like, yes, it brought me out of poverty, but I don't know what is worse. But at the same time, it's like, I'd rather not be hungry again. So we're here for real. That's more so of the conversation that would probably go about versus like with Frollo when he was a kid, and what has disillusioned him with being within a conflict affected area and basically having your childhood kind of stilted short due to being in a conflict affected area, which again, they both dealt with poverty. It was just in vastly different ways. But at the same time, I mean, it's like both of them were basically being taken advantage of, were being discredited, whatever word you want to use. Essentially, the system was fucking with them and they just couldn't have a normal childhood to begin with. It was just in vastly different ways. Like, to keep it 100% a buck with you. What the hell fell? My board. We'll figure it out. So, yeah, that's a whole entire conversation that was kind of just left to the open. Yeah, but for those of you that just came in the live, hello, how are you doing? We just finished basically talking about the recent podcast episode that I have and the next podcast episode that I'm previewing. Not today, but we're kind of talking a little bit about that, right? Amongst like other Hunter things. And what I'm going to do, or what I plan on doing as well, I think I'm going to put it on my Patreon, is I'm going to be doing like, and I've been doing this project for a bit, but I think I'm going to release it at some point in time, which is speaking of like comparisons of Hisoka versus like Crollo, like a comparison between the two characters. I'm gonna do an entire like analysis off of that as well. It's like a compare and contrast. It's gonna be fun for me and my brain, especially. It's gonna keep my brain active. I'm gonna love it. I'm gonna love it. I have no makeup on. This is an extremely casual conversation. My more so professional live streams, we will get back to, I think, in like March. Like February's live stream is like extremely casual. I think it fits the month. It's a casual month. I believe that fully. There's my marker. There it is. Yeah, but it's like extremely casual. It's gonna be a casual month. It's gonna be vibing for real, We're out here listening to the music behind me. We're just out here not giving a damn at all. We are really just sitting here, talking about whatever. I guess within the comment section, you could basically talk about, especially for the Secession War arc, which is not today's conversation. I wanted to more so talk about like Hisoka's character, but if you want to go down in the comments and be like, this is my favorite moment within Secession, hey, I encourage any conversation down here, like get to talking about it, because that brings me utmost joy, like us talking about these different characters and the impact of everything. Somebody requested that I should talk about Morena, which I will soon, but that's for like Secession War conversations. I'm keeping that saved for later. Don't mind the noise in the background. I have a very loud African family. Okay? Love them dearly, but they are loud. Do keep that in mind. But don't let me choose. But don't make me choose. No, but this is limping my sports car. Yeah, but just comment like all kind of thoughts you have for Secession War arc. I want to keep like the conversation going, essentially. And we're just gonna have like a couple more minutes of this. They basically finalizing all the thoughts we have, and you guys can like either comment or comment on the Spotify podcast itself because it's on Spotify. For like those of you wondering like where the episode is, the show's analysis was wrote, and I will put that somewhere within the comment section, or it's on my previous comments. Or another way you could find all of it is go look at my Twitch like description page, like the about page. You'll see it on there. You'll see like all the links like on the very top screen of the page, and you can click on either the link tree or the Hoobie, and basically you can find pretty much everything that you need on there, including like all my Spotify like podcast shows, so you guys can listen to it and really be immersed in like the way that I analyze these different characters. And I think I just want to wrap up this whole entire conversation by basically the reason again that I decided to do for this character, like analyze his character in this way, is because I believe like as much as I love the anime, I think it watered his character down like a fuck ton. The way that the anime portrays his character is way different from the book. Like it's nowhere close. It's like it's not even close. And I'm just like I would say like for like the dude bros, this is one of the few times I'm gonna actually be on their side. You won't see me do this often. I do believe they're correct. Like, I believe that the way that they've analyzed Hisoka's, not analyzed, but like portrayed is the better word, his character within the show. It's like they censored a lot of shit for him. They also like turned him into this form of like comic relief, which in the original, he wasn't really that. He was supposed to be more of like a dark mentor. I'm not kidding when I say, and we're going to get into like the evidence of it all and kind of like a appetitive aggression, because that's exactly what it has. The book portrays his appetitive aggression, and in other words, like kind of this strong attraction and feeling to power, because that's what it is. Like in both the 99 and the 2011 versions, I feel like they do not depict that well enough, if the fuck at all. Like when I tell you they actually like and that's the thing with adaptations, right? It's not gonna portray the character 100% accurate. It just slightly frustrated me, and I was like, that's it. Y'all need to know what the complete truth of this character. Does that mean I believe this character is like a saint of a human? No, and I don't need my characters to be 100% saints of humans. I just need them to be portrayed mostly accurate, or in a way that I think best suits their character. And I think for like both shows, like it's for the 2011 especially, it's a good adaptation. I'm not saying it's bad. They did like a beautiful job overall. It's just certain characters I wish they, didn't change like entire aspects of their character and kind of just kept it the same. But I think the main reason they did that is because the show was supposed to be advertised towards kids mainly. So I think that's probably why. So they had to water down his character as like a form of censorship, because he is like in the book a pretty dark character to begin with. So they had to like basically lighten certain perspectives of him and make him like comedic relief, and just change entire aspects to his character in order to lighten the mood so it doesn't scare the kids. Like it was to the point where I think like in one scene, and this is me spoiling myself because I didn't even get to the adulthood aspect of his analysis, but I'll just say it now. I think they pretty much like censored the part where he like cut off his arm and used it as like a handbag. Like again, it's a whole thing. He crazy. Yeah, he a crazy man. Just they censored that whole part. It's like his hand was like bloodied and all. Like it was bad. Like in some aspect, I kind of get it. It's like you don't want to scare the kids, because like in the book, like that nigga's scary, but not like scary because like, oh my god, he's a creep or da da da, whatever they watered him down to, which pretty much I just explained it. But like scary in the way it's like this man, like he would stab me, not care type scary, like murderous scary. Like there's a blatant difference. which is like, I want the other one. I want the how do the youngsters say nowadays? I want the alpha male scary. Pretty much. That's the scary that he is in the book. Like in the book, it's like he's a lot more calculated. He's a lot more sarcastic / sardonic within the book versus the show. Like some of the aspects do come out in the show. It's just not as blatant. And I'm just like, yeah, that's pretty much it for like this whole entire conversation, at least for today. So I think in March, what's going to happen, pretty much a couple of announcements before I leave. Somewhere in mid to late March, I don't know exactly when it's going to come out, but mid to late March, we are going to have our next podcast episode come out, and it's going to be in video. It's going to be a whole entire production. It's going to take some time. But I'm excited for it, It's going to be an exciting aspect to this Hisoka analysis, which I hope to complete. I say June, but I'm going to be realistic. I think it's going to be like a year and a half by the time this whole entire project is done. It's going to be a while. But yeah, that next podcast episode is coming out in March, so keep your eyes on that. The next live stream that I have will also come out in March, so keep your eyes on that. And we're going to try to keep up and basically not leave y'all barren. I'm not going to put y'all on hiatus. I'm going to try to make more content in between so that you guys can pretty much get everything. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed like this entire show. Please make sure again to support your girl by going through all like the Twitch links that I have above my description page. Make sure to check out the Patreon, check out the Hoobie, support your girl, give your girl a couple of shebang if you're feeling it. If not, then you basically being a follower on Twitch or you subscribing to the YouTube is enough for me. Yeah, again, thank you for coming here and hanging out with me and being the absolute vibe with me. It was pretty cool vibing with you guys, and I will see you next time.